Last time on Sailing Chloe, we had just sailed from Alderney down to Guernsey and arrived in St. Peter Port. So once we'd docked up, we wanted to go and explore the local area, and we discovered it was a very different place to Alderney, a lot busier, a lot more commercial, and a lot noisier. And so I think the population is around 20 times that of Alderney.
We're in Guernsey right now, hoping to find some Guernsey cows, but instead we found Guernsey sheep.
Do you think they have nice eyelashes too?
I think that's okay. I like to see Guernsey sheep too. I think we're lost. Do you know where we are? Left or right? Left. Or right?
And we should follow the flowers.
Okay.
Follow the flowers. These white flowers, they taste like ginger, and you can eat them.
Garlic.
Garlic, rather. Yeah, not ginger. What am I thinking?
They were in our soup.
Soup.
Our restaurant.
We're just walking around Guernsey, having a little walk in these country roads, which are quite nice until a car comes along and you have to jump up in the stinging nettles.
We really liked Guernsey once we got out into the open areas, but it still couldn't quite match the tranquility and peacefulness of Alderney.
So there's a French regatta in town, so we've been surrounded by laundry. And French boats, they all arrived this morning. Smaller, fast sailing boats, and they're jamming and packing them in like sardines here. There's a big underwear display. Guernsey was a little bit busy for our tastes, so we wanted to head back over to Alderney. We had to get back to Cherbourg, unfortunately, to get our EPRIB, pick up our EPRIB.
So this is our EPRIB, and EPRIB stands for Emergency Position Indicating Radio Beacon, and it's a safety device you carry on board. And it's to be used if you are ever in a situation where you need to abandon ship, or a serious emergency where you're going to be left out at sea with a life raft. You would carry this with you, and it transmits a positioning beacon to some satellites so that you can be rescued. So the way the beacon works is that it transmits a signal to satellites, which then gets routed ultimately to an international group who's looking out for these signals, who then routes it to the local search and rescue teams, who comes out to save you. And there's two types of beacons. There's either the type that automatically deploys when it hits the water, or the type that manually deploys, and we decided to go with the manual deployment because we want to take it with us, and we want to put it in our ditch bag and have it available when we want to use it. Okay, there's several features for the EPRIB that you need to consider when you buy them. For example, this one has a strobe light. What are the weight and dimensions of the unit? What can fit in the area? Where you're going to put it within your boat. Battery life. Most of the batteries for each of the EPRIBs on the market last about 10 years. You can't change the battery yourself. You have to have it changed by a representative from the company that you bought it from. It should actually work for 48 hours to transmit your location for that long, and then the batteries will not last any longer than that. But for 48 hours you will be transmitting your location once you deploy the unit. The key feature that you really need to look at, though, is what kind of technology is used to send out the distress signal. We chose the McMurdo Smart Find AIS G8, and the reason we chose that one is it has the most comprehensive set of transmitting and receiving technology built in. So once you hit the distress button, it will then transmit the standard 121 megahertz. Now that is the original transmitting frequency that was used. The distance it can travel is very, very short, so really it can just be picked up with search and rescue airplanes or ships that are circling around you within a very short distance. And they don't actually sell them anymore with just a 121 megahertz. So all of the ones you buy now at least have a 406 megahertz transmission, and that is the transmission frequency which gets sent up to the satellite system, which then gets sent out to the international search and rescue teams. The extra features you can get, this one has actual GPS positioning. So with the 406 megahertz transmitter, it's using the Doppler effect to determine your GPS position. So when you send out a signal, it's more of a passive method to determine your location. But with GNSS, that technology, you're actually, just like a cell phone, you're actually receiving your GPS location. You have a GPS receiver in the unit itself, and that location is then sent out to the satellites to be picked up. And the last feature that this one had, which is one of the newest features that they offer, is an AIS transmitter. So AIS gets transmitted locally to all the boats within your area, just like the AIS on your chart plotter. So it automatically gets sent as a man overboard, takes priority over all the other AISs in the area, and transmits that there's an issue. So you could possibly get picked up by a ship that's local to you right in your area. And lastly, the EPRIB unit itself is useless unless you actually register it. We are a US flagship, so we had to contact NOAA and OAA and register the unit with them. And once it's registered with them, it gets put into the international system so they can identify the EPRIB signal as your boat and your EPRIB unit. So for the registration process, we ran into a little bit of a hiccup. You should be able to purchase an EPRIB anywhere in the world that you are. We happened to purchase it in France, but we needed to ask them to specifically code up the EPRIB to be associated with a USA country code. So each EPRIB has a coding internal to it which identifies the country code, the MMSI, or the ship's identifier, ship's name, and so forth. So these codings, we had to ask them specifically to code in a different country from the country of origin where we bought the unit, which shouldn't have been a problem. But when we received the unit back and we tried to register it online, we had some errors and it wouldn't allow us to register the unit. It said the coding was done incorrectly. So we took the unit back, and finally, talking to the McMurdo technical people in French, we finally figured out that the coding was done incorrectly. And I believe the USA NOAA registration process for coding has been changed. So the coding used to be done according to a hexadecimal ID translation of the MMSI number for the ship, but they're no longer doing that. We had to use the hexadecimal ID translation of the serial number for the EPRIB unit itself. So just make sure when you get it coded, use the serial number hexadecimal ID translated number to program up your EPRIB, and the registration worked just fine after we got it reprogrammed.
Okay, we are leaving Guernsey. We're just leaving the channel, and wind's kind of on our tail largely, we're just running with a jib right now. Full jib. And avoiding the rocks as we exit the channel. There's a few big ones. Kind of a funny looking tower, that. Some kind of lookout post.
The journey from Guernsey to Alderney is only about 4 hours, so we took the opportunity to practice some reefing.
Why would rocks be joyous? Okay, we're now on reef 2. So that was pretty easy, and we didn't change, we didn't head up into the wind. It's not spreading against, it's not pushing against the spreaders, which is nice. This is a swept spreader design. So that's always an issue of the downwind sailing, is the plane will start chafing against the spreaders and shrouds, but it's not. Okay, so we're gonna shake out a reef. We've got reef 3 in right now, which we were testing, and we're gonna move over to reef 2. So reef 3 has got 2 lines, one for the tack and one for the clue, and we're gonna release both of those lines. And we're gonna do it on a current point of sail, and we're not going to get into an issue because the mainsail is clear of the lazy jacks, so there's no tangle potential. Okay, so we got reef 3 here and the Cunningham reef with a little tension on them just to control them. The halyard is over here. Dawn's gonna crank that on. Our big winch at the back is electric, so we're gonna use that to haul up the halyard. And we're gonna go up about 10 feet up the mast. The halyard on this boat is a double halyard, so it's a Dyneema cord line, but it means there's a lot of line as a result of that. It's got extra purchase. So, and it's marked off there, yeah. Reef 3.
Reef 2 we're going to pull in.
So ready to put reef 2 on, and that's again an automatic reef, so it's just one line she has to deal with. Okay, I'm going to do a little power check here. So we got 2 chop plotters running. We got a VHF going. We've got radar running. We got audio on all channels blasting. And we got autopilot running. The autopilot is not running very hard because right now the wind's dropped down to only about 12-13 knots, and so the autopilot's having a fairly easy time, but we are under sail now, and the battery is full. Solar's not even having to do anything. Solar's producing 12 amps, but that's only because the battery's full and there's no load, so it's not really a good energy check. But right now, all we can conclude is that the solar is keeping up with those loads. And we'll do this again and several times under different conditions to figure out. the load if the solar panels can keep up. It's a fairly clear day, a little bit hazy, good sun and like late afternoon, so solar's doing great. So we suddenly hit this rough patch where waves just started mounting up.
A riptide.
Big riptide where the two currents clash with each other.
And here it is.
And this is called the swing. And we were surrounded by white water. All of a sudden it just came crashing over the bow.
Whitecaps.
Big whitecaps, and some of it's still over there. So we're kind of through it now. Never really seen anything quite like that. This is a typical shot of Alderney's coastline. Covered in wildflowers, forts, and German fortifications. These two are called, I'm not sure actually because it's kind of intermediate. This one is either a winkle or a whelk, but see the colour of it? So I gotta go and check that out. Is it winkle or whelk? It begins with a W. A tank. This is a shell of a common limpet, and back in the cave woman days, cave women used to use these to make pasties. You can imagine. At least that's what I imagine.
This is one of the two lighthouses on Alderney and protects boaters from the Alderney race between Alderney and France. Last resident lightkeeper was there up until 1997, and the lighthouse light just recently went to LED. I'm just finishing up the cushions, the backs here.
Very nice. They're certainly very comfortable.
Top stitching my zipper.
What are you doing?
I'm top stitching my zipper.
It's not a very pleasant working environment, is it?
No, this sucks.
You know, your red mushroom head matches the curtains. I mean the cushions. We were sailing back to Alderney, back from Alderney rather. There's Alderney over there. And we're going to go back to Cherbourg for to pick up our EPRIB, which was not calibrated correctly by the shop that we bought it from. So EPRIBs are now calibrated through the hex code that's on them and not the MMSI number, which has changed recently. It's another little change in the US law. And we're passing Point Hague, or the Cape Hague. But that is the nuclear fuel reprocessing plant that takes all the nasty stuff and makes it even nastier. There's a history of nuclear fuel in this area. Back in the day when we were building nuclear power stations for the first time in the 60s, 70s, the English dumped a great big load of waste, radioactive waste, right under us here in the water. There's a trench here, and they thought it would be deep enough to be safe, so they just dumped it, and hopefully they've regretted it ever since, but it's been contaminating the English Channel, and to the extent that it's become one of the most radioactive sea areas in the world. Now at over 11 knots, and helped along by a very strong current. We're slingshotting around the Cape Hague, and we're being helped along with 7.3 knots. That's pushing us offshore, and our boat speed is 4.3 knots. It's quite nice to be making 11 knots though. Yeah, the current is very strong here. You can see these short choppy waves here are all as a result of the current and not from the wind. When these currents are against the wind, you get a big mess. Not our case today. We've definitely got current going with the wind, so the conditions are a lot more benign than it can be. But it is a spring tide, so these currents are as strong as they get. So it's actually quite choppy, but it's a different sort of chop to a wind-driven choppy factor. We've still got our full main up, full jib, and we're on pretty well a beam reach. The wind's coming straight out there. Here comes the Yates Irish ferry. He's going to just be flying past us, doing whatever he can do with his big 33 megawatt engines, and he'll be coming around and nip into Cherbourg before us. Now we've got to change our flag back to La France, red, white and blue. After picking up our EPRIB in Cherbourg, which now appears to work perfectly, we then decided to cross the English Channel. In the middle of the English Channel is the TSS, the Traffic Separation Scheme, and this is the busiest channel traffic scheme in the world. where tankers and freighters fly up and down. They go east one way and west in the second lane. So the idea is to cross over the lanes perpendicular to the channel so that we show the incoming ships our lights. The other thing is to cross the TSS as fast as you can. So we tried to sail as fast as we could, and we were hitting 9 knots as we traversed the channel. Each channel is about 6 miles wide. The freighters and super tankers and big boats seem to be spaced at about 1 mile apart. So we have to negotiate them, make sure we don't go in front of them or cause them to change their course. These big ships seem to be moving along at around high teens to low 20s knots of speed, so over twice as fast as we're going perpendicular to them. But it makes it a little trickier to maneuver away from them.
About halfway through the English Channel, we ran into some dense fog. Visibility was about 1 mile to 1.5 miles, and we tested out the radar and it worked really well. We were comfortable that all of the ships in the shipping lane were visible with radar.
We're in the TSS and we're on a collision course with this big tanker that's about 1,000 tons or 10,000 tons bigger than us.
And he just called us on the VHF.
He just called us on the VHF to make sure that we can see him, and we said that we would pass behind him and then he won't sink us, which is the purpose of the exercise.
The place we decided to sail to over in the UK across the channel was Dartmouth. It was really nice on a River Dart, and we were pleasantly surprised, and we will show you all about Dartmouth in the next episode.